Hello, I am Jason Hahn, and we are back with some more manga discussions. I am joined today by some very talented Screen Rant comic book writers, and we're here to talk about My Hero Academia. The last couple chapters we need to discuss are 347 and 348. My name is Jason Hahn, and I like to write Screen Rant video game news, but I'm a huge fan of manga. And yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce everybody who's with me. Ben, you want to give it a go?
Yeah, I'm Ben. I write for Screen Rant about manga and comics. And I'm very excited to dive into this chapter.
Steven?
Yeah, Stephen here, writing for the comic section for Screen Rant, doing manga and comics, but mostly manga and Sonic. Cannot forget Sonic.
The games, the movies, the comics, all of it?
Oh, the comics, yeah.
Okay, the Sonic expert of Screen Rant is here. Very excited for the movie. And yeah, Carlyle, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Yeah. Carlyle. I also worked Screen Rant for the comics department, doing manga mostly. Excited to talk about My Hero today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Today was a treat because we got the new official translation a couple days early, which also means we have other series to talk about. Check the channel for more discussions. But yeah, we are diving right into this Deku and Toga fight, and I've got the chapter pulled up over here. So if my eyes are consistently doing this, it's because the art was so good in this chapter. I'm just a huge fan of whenever the artist decides to do like a lot of shading with Toga stuff. She's probably one of my favorite designed characters in this entire series, and we've all been very anxious for her to get into this really the heart of the conflict between her, Ochako, and Deku. And I really think that this moved along that pretty well. Ochako stared a lot and shook a little bit, and she even said a couple words, so that's cool. But yeah, I think Deku. One thing I wanted to say right off about this chapter is the narrator went and called him a damn nerd after he couldn't quite understand her saying that she has feelings for him, which kind of gave me the feeling that is Bakugo narrating this story?
That was the joke that we immediately made upon reading that chapter. Who knew Bakugo was the narrator?
Yeah. I mean, what a twist that would be is if this whole story is just being told by Bakugo way into the future.
Yeah. It's how he became the greatest hero.
Yeah. Well, if you ask me, Bakugo, I'm the greatest hero, but I'll tell you the story of if there's a thumbnail for this one, it'll be Princess Bride with Bakugo telling the story to his young grandson. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie. It's a good one.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But yeah, what were your guys' initial thought? What were the first things you wanted to get off your chest on this chapter?
I'll start with something that's kind of relatively minor. I know that in an earlier chapter, I don't remember what it was, but when we got to see Himiko, she was confronting her past in a really intense way. She went back to her home where all the graffiti was, saying all these horrible things about her. But during that time, the thing that really got to me was, it was a real introspective moment for her, but she didn't talk about Ochako at all. And when that was happening, my first thing was, okay, either one, this is, bad writing, or just like completely forgetting about like the thing that we care about the most, or she's doing this on purpose. And these latest chapters have, just prove that Himiko has been actively trying to push Ochako out of her mind, which is a really interesting way of her, dealing with this. Because I know at the end of the paranormal liberation war, I mean, obviously Ochako pushing her away hurt her profoundly. And I guess this is just one of her ways of Himiko's ways of dealing with it. And I think that's great that, how this turned out and that it wasn't. Yeah. Go right ahead.
I was just going to say, it just kind of speaks to like, for me, it was almost like showing how like broken and mentally unwell she is on how she's able to just split that relationship off immediately. Unless I like what you're saying is it's, all just psychological warfare to get into Ochako's head. But I'm not sure if, we're going to get that deep into like psychological warfare and the writing of My Hero Academia. But I would find it really interesting if it did go that route. But I think it's just Toga is absolutely just crazy and willing to like completely cut somebody off the minute she doesn't get what she wants out of it, which seems like what she's doing with Deku by the end of this chapter when he says like, nah, thanks. And she's just like, oh, okay, well, I guess that didn't work out. Let me just be mad and go into a rampage now. That's kind of how I took it.
Well,
I think there's a moment there where, sorry, but I think she's I think that she's just like, of course, this is what was going to happen. There's a bit of resignation there, but I don't think that it's giving up necessarily. I don't think that she's throwing it away, but it's just like, this is the outcome that I knew there was going to be, because she's not that disconnected from reality.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
And I think it also ties into this sort of theme that like she hurts those that she loves. You know, that's how she expresses her love. And you know, I think Ochako is going to try to break through to her and be like, you know, this isn't what you should do for people that you actually, you know, care about. But it, you know, it sort of lines up with like, oh, you know, Deku doesn't love me. Well, I still love him. I'm just going to hurt him harder.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a bunch of Toga Ochako shippers who are hoping that that's how it all turns out.
But of course there are.
Yeah, of course there are. It's the internet. We know you're out there. We see you.
And I don't even mind that, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I really don't see the story going that way, but I thought that'd be kind of funny. But yeah, at the end of this chapter, I before we started recording, we were just gabbing a little bit about it, and I like how in the previous chapter we got a very informative map of Japan. So now we know exactly how far away all these battles are going on. So now we have a good idea of how far Deku has to run to be able to get to a good fight. So they've already set up like the Goku moment, where everyone's got to just keep doing what they're doing until the main hero shows up. So the ticking clock suspense is going, but we have left it with Ochaku and Froppy versus Toga. And we had some really cool panels of some action in this one. Toga throwing some knives and getting into cool stances with the knives like in midair. And I'm just a huge fan of how well this is all drawn. That's one thing I think My Hero consistently impresses me with, is just how well is put together and structured. But what are some other bits about the chapter that stood out for you guys?
Well, I think that this is definitely an interesting place. I know there have been some complaints about Ochako not necessarily having a lot to do lately. I think this putting her in contrast with Toga here is an interesting way to handle that, where she can be doing something that's important, and needs still be disconnected from the main battle where she really doesn't belong.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, they've effectively gotten all the plot threads set up to where they need to be, I feel like, and I'm not sure which one. I don't know if this is one's going to get resolved right away, or if we're going to instantly jump into another fight. Because last chapter, we got a little bit of the Shigaraki stuff going on. I think we had enough of that set up where the next time we jump into that, it might be way more progressed than we'd like. I'm hoping that we jump right back to it, right where it keep left off. But I'm also afraid it's going to be kind of a Naruto situation where he's just going to show up at another battlefield and be like, oh yeah, I took care of those guys, no problem. And you're just like, what? No, that's scary and terrifying. I just want everyone to have their time to shine.
Yeah, I feel like that might not happen, because otherwise, like, the payoff for Deku going to where Shigaraki is now is Deku arrives there and he's like, where did Shigaraki go? And then that would feel kind of like of course, then he'd dash off to wherever he went, but that would still feel kind of underwhelming. I think what's going to happen there is they're going to, like, the heroes, they're going to hold the line against Shigaraki the best they can. And right when Shigaraki is, like, you know, has, like, defeated them, or, you know, got them on the brink of defeat, then Deku will show up.
Yeah.
But it would certainly be interesting if it deviated from that. But
Yeah, because that's kind of one thing with Shigaraki is he's just so OP, and with them, I kind of pulled up the last chapter actually, and we get it. You can draw hands. It's very impressive. It's cool, but he just keeps on. In 347, we kind of start off with Shigaraki, and his regeneration powers are just so good now that he can just have limbs just spawn out of anything, even when his powers are being turned off. And so we just get lots of panels of thumbs and amalgamations of flesh, and I hear hands are very hard to draw. So anytime I see a whole panel of hands, I'm just like, dude, all right, you're showing off. We get it. You're pretty good. But we got the confirmation that Mirako is still alive and kicking. And we had a convenient vending machine for robotic parts and limbs just sitting in the middle of the battlefield, where she just quickly snapped on new limbs and is ready to fight some more. I'm really glad that she's not just one-shotted and taken away, because in a little bit we've seen it with her throughout this series. She's become a pretty awesome favorite of mine. Very curious to see how she's going to be able to stack up against Shigaraki, especially with the team setup we have going on. But a lot of that last chapter was really just setting up everybody we've got fighting against Shigaraki. We got Bakugo, Mirako, Genist, and Twirly girl. I forgot her name. She's
you mean
one of the big three.
Yeah, the senior.
Yeah, that's the one. And Sun Eater also. So that's kind of an all-star cast there, especially Bakugo. Bakugo being there alone makes me feel like, we're not going to get to a moment where Shigaraki just wipes everybody out, because Shigaraki having all of his powers, he could just instantly disintegrate everybody. Well, if he's within contact, that sort of thing. And it's kind of hard to recover from being disintegrated. So I don't think we'll get that. But yeah, and then we have All for One and Endeavor going on in another one. Where do you think we're going to go next?
Gotta catch up with Todoroki's.
Yeah.
That's the next big thing. Yeah, I think what everyone, or at least what I'm waiting for. I mean, my whole focus is Himiko and Ochako and Todoroki and everything. And unfortunately, I mean, everything else is filler to me. So as long as we get those two stories, that's what I'm focused on, and hopefully that's what main focus will be for a while.
Absolutely. I think you guys nailed it, because dealing with All for One and Shigaraki are like the big threats. These more focused conflicts with Toga and Dabi are much more personal and dramatic, and I absolutely think that we're going to not necessarily get that all out of the way, but I'm pretty sure we're going to deal with all that first before we get into, however they end up resolving All for One and Shigaraki's conflict. But
like I was just on it. I mean, they're doing a really good job with teasing it. I mean, because for a moment we looked like, in Endeavor, Shoto and Dabi were all going to go at it, and then they all get separated, and now it's just Shoto and Dabi with Endeavor with All for One. So it's like we're getting these little moments where it's like, oh, they're all gonna fight. Oh, no, just we're gonna move this back a little bit. So it's kind of like the same thing that's going on with Himiko and Ochako. I mean, it's kind of, they're just teasing us with, all right, we're all together. Oh no, we're not. So it's just good writing, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of like teasing. I mean, it's been teasing for a long time, this huge all-out war, and we know all these plot threads are all coming together to this sort of thing. So it was kind of we got this big war happening, and all right, now we're going into 4 smaller battles. I hope you like that. And I mean, yeah, it would be absolutely chaotic if it was just like a like Avengers level war scene where you have everything happening all over the place and no one has time to breathe, and it's just crazy and hectic. So I'm glad that we avoided that, and we're absolutely better writing choice of getting them all split up so we can have these moments. I personally I mean, Dobby doesn't really seem to have any redeeming qualities. I've said before, I know Shoto's whole plan or desire is to get to a point where he can have a bowl of noodles with his big bro and everything will work out. But Dobby's kind of gone too far. I really don't think he has any redemption left in him, because he's kind of, melted a lot of innocent people and done some pretty unforgivable things. So I'm
Yeah.
not really sure how they're going to be able to resolve that. I know Shoto's not going to be able to kill his older brother, but knocking him out just seems kind of anticlimactic with everything Dobby has said and done. And yeah, where do you guys think that's going?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least we can't. I mean, it won't be able to resolve itself until I think the big thing is Endeavor and Dabby getting together. I mean, because Dabby, I mean, Endeavor rejecting Dabby was the reason why he burst into flames and became the way he is now. So I mean, I think if he gets that recognition from Endeavor, that's probably what this is all building up to. I mean, I think that's the only thing that could bring him back, if anything could bring him back. But I mean, since his father rejecting him was what sent him over the edge and almost killed himself as a result. I mean, I think, at least for me, that's what it's all building up to.
You think that's all he really wants at this point? Dobby is just that acknowledgement.
No, I think that he seriously wants to, destroy Endeavor or at least, bring him down. But I think, deep down at some point, something might connect with him emotionally. I mean, because this is shonen after all.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think that's what he wants right now. I think he literally just wants to tear down Endeavor and, show that he's not actually the hero that everyone wants him or needs him to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see what they're going to do more with Shoto, because as a character, I feel like he kind of peaked during the sports festival, and since then, he's just kind of done a lot of like quiet reflection and slowly trying to give his dad a chance a little bit. But so far, we just haven't really gotten a lot of like huge character moments for Shoto. And I mean, according to the films and popularity polls, he's hugely popular, and they haven't really done anything with him since then. So I'm really hoping that we get a good moment, and I just have no idea what it would be. Like conversation.
I mean, part of what makes it so difficult with Shoto is that he is so reserved in how he reacts to things most of the time. Even when he's being interviewed and Bakugo's losing his shit right next to him, it doesn't even bother him. So I think that's kind of what you have to do with him. If you're going to have that big moment, then it has to be a big emotional thing for him. And in order to get that reaction, Dobby's going to have to push him very far. So there could be some rough stuff ahead.
Yeah, and I agreed to what you were saying, Jason, earlier. How Shoto peaked. I mean, I think what was interesting for me, at least, about his character was his rejection of his father's quirk. Just I'm only going to focus on the ice. That whole dynamic, that whole duality, was what really defined him. And then once he finally began not really embracing, but accepting it, that it's part of who he is, that's when it kind of was like, oh, well, where's the conflict? I mean, it's a great moment. I mean, for him, growing as a character, being able to, forgive his dad for basically being a horrible human being. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, once that conflict was gone, it kind of lost that appeal.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead, Ben.
It feels to me almost like he became a part of Endeavor's character arc instead of being a part of his own, because then it focused on Endeavor trying to become a person who's like atoning for his past sins, which includes Shoto. And so getting his forgiveness was part of Endeavor's story as much as it was Shoto's, and the way it was framed felt to me more like through Endeavor's eyes. But
yeah, that's a great observation. I didn't think about that, and it absolutely makes sense. It's just Endeavor's character arc has taken a lot longer than Shoto's did, because I think that's kind of why the first couple seasons of My Hero Academia, when the anime aired, it got so popular, is because especially in that chunk of the story, they did just such a great job with telling so much backstory in almost so little time, because it only took a couple episodes, I'd say maybe even just one episode, to really get there with Shoto, where you got his entire conflict with being abused by his father and wanting to hide that part, and him rising it up through it because of Deku. And so, yeah, it's just, as I said earlier, it's been on a standstill since then, because the writing seems to, I don't want to say be less focused. It's just, it's trying to accomplish so much bigger things to eventually get to this end point. And I just think that's because, they're trying to wrap up the series, really. Hopefully we do get that big payoff. I don't know if it's going to get quite to the levels of, Deku and Todoroki throwing everything that they have. Well, Deku throwing everything he had. That was one of my favorite parts of the series. That was probably my first, like, okay, I love this story, is Deku breaking his arms and limbs and doing everything he could against, at that point, one of the strongest people we knew in the entire series. So yeah, we'll see where how Dobby stacks up against him, and it's going to be, I think, definitely a battle of wits, instead of just fire against fire, power battle beams or power struggles and stuff like that. I don't think we'll be seeing that, but is it just Shoto there? Do we know? Is anybody else in that battle?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, all I know is that Endeavor's not there, and
Right.
that All for One called him out on that.
Yeah, I think we just
Father of the Year.
I think we just got like one panel showing that like Shoto and Dabi were gonna fight, and so it's unclear if there are other people around them.
Okay.
But yeah.
But yeah, I think that's absolute, or we're going to go next week, or a week and a half. But yeah, we hadn't previously talked about 347 a whole lot. I'm really digging the power dynamic that they have built up right now, with one of the most annoying students that we ever met getting his redemption of the guy who can use other people's quirks. He's coordinating with Eraser to keep Shigaraki nerfed right now, but he's just so OP at this point that he doesn't even need his quirks, really. So it's that's one of the things I love about these types of series, is we know enough about each one of these characters, so when they do some sort of amazing team up or coordination between the quirks, we just see amazing strategies, and they've kind of gotten to a point at this story where they can just pull out whatever they want and it'll make sense and be awesome. I'm very excited to see where that goes, because I personally like Shigaraki. I'm very curious to see where he goes with the whole All for One thing right now, because I almost see him overcoming that and killing All for One, because he already kind of has that power in him. I don't know if it's going to be like a Naruto Orochimaru sort of thing, where it's almost like a Horcrux from Harry Potter, where it's part of the bad guy is in that person, so the bad guy can just respawn if the other body dies or something like that, essentially. And I'm wondering if Shigaraki is just going to be like, oh, that's cool, melt, like, or if he's even there still.
Earlier in the manga, wasn't it basically implying that sort of thing was the case, where like All for One was taking over Shigaraki's like body?
Yeah, like are there two All for Ones? Like,
kind of.
I think it's kind of like how at one point there was two One for Alls, or I mix that up all the time. But at one point, All Might was still powerful or had some power, and Deku was still there. So it's just kind of a power balance of like, while All Might was this strong, Deku was only this strong, and while Deku got stronger, the power just kind of shifts a little bit.
It was a little different though, because like All for One was like physically taking over Shigaraki's like mind and body. Like we saw him like morph into.
Yeah, they were like an amalgamated mass.
Yeah.
So here's my thought on this, based on what we've seen with how these vestiges work. It seems to me that it if he can pass on All for One in the same way that All Might passed on One for All, then that means that there's a vestige of All for One in Shigaraki's mind. And since All Might had an awareness of what was going on with the vestige in Deku's mind, All for One is using this vestige to take control of Shigaraki and kind of become the dominant force in this mind. I don't think that means that Shigaraki would go away entirely, but who's in charge would definitely swap. That's the goal.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I don't know. I almost see All for One being that sort of evil SOB who would want to take over the body and just 100%. And that's kind of the major difference between all the vestiges of One for All versus All for One is they want to help each other out and to eventually, be a force for good that can do the most good, while All for One has always just been like me. Oh man, I've got this broken body because All Might punched me in the face so hard that I need to have a new body, which is how I think that's All for One's end game there, personally.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to use Shigaraki until the point where he's just like, okay, well, I can just fully take over now. And I'm really hoping Shigaraki is going to be beefed up enough at that point where he's just like, yeah, no. And
I think that's kind of what happened with the Star and Stripe fight, though, because All for One really did kind of try to take over entirely, and instead, like the will of Shigaraki was not so weak that he could take over entirely, and they've started to blend together into something that's part both of them in a very weird way.
And they've had a whole week to figure that out within Shigaraki's brain. So it's still kind of a mystery as to exactly what version of Shigaraki we're experiencing right now. So all that being said, I'm into it. I'm into that plot thread and really curious to see where it goes. Maybe even more than the Todoroki family drama is compelling, but it's just kind of like they've been leading up to it for so long. Like as soon as they talked about or brought up, oh, there's a mysterious older brother, we're just like, oh, that's probably Dabi. And that was like 200 chapters ago or something. Yeah, I mean, Shoto and Dabi need to have a good conversation. But I definitely was more into the Toga Deku storyline than I think I personally am for the Todoroki stuff. Because as cool as the Todoroki family stuff can get, I'm not sure what the coolest thing that could happen.
It's already happened. The scene, the dinner scene at home. I don't think anything can ever top that. I mean, that was, yeah, that was, and it's ironic. Like at least with My Hero, I actually prefer the moments where they're not fighting. I don't know why. Like I guess I just like the characters so much that I prefer them talking. But yeah, that's one of the things is that
I guess which dinner scene? Because there's been a couple where I feel like they all tried to have dinner and then they're like, let's not do this, and then they leave.
It was the one when they're all the Todoroki household.
Mm-hmm.
So like they were all there. So it was, I think Bakugo was there, Deku was there, Endeavor, Shoto, his brother and sister.
Relatively.
It was just that whole really awkward dinner scene where all the family drama was coming up and Deku and Bakugo are like, what's going on? It was just like, that was like the pinnacle for me, at least with those characters. And I guess that's why I'm really excited about them all coming together, in this battle, because, I just want that whole story to resolve itself. I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, we've got about a week and a half, but I really think that's where we're going next. I'm curious to see if Shoto's just got to put it all in his handle it all himself, or who knows, maybe All for One's going to get in Endeavor's head and Endeavor's going to have to be like, okay, I should probably go help Shoto, because I really feel like that storyline can't really peak without Endeavor there as well. So we're somehow going to have to get those characters there. because I feel like it'd be really anticlimactic if All for One killed Endeavor.
Oh,
And
no,
then,
that'd be horrible. No.
yeah, and then Shoto and Dabi exist in that, and then yeah, I really don't see that happening that way. So we somehow have to get Endeavor halfway across the country as well, which I think it would be a pretty if that's what they do, it would be really cool to see how fast Endeavor can get to one of these places compared to Deku, because it would be I think it'd be really interesting to see like if Deku has gotten to the point where he's faster than the number one hero.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Ben.
I think no matter what happens with the traveling between locations, there are going to be tons of fan calculations saying like, oh, it never couldn't have done this because you'd be traveling faster than the speed of light or something.
Eventually
so-
the death battle guys will absolutely do like a Deku versus somebody, and I'm a huge fan of the death battle guys. And
meanwhile, over in Dragon Ball Super today, we just fly in between planets in a couple minutes, like no big deal.
Yeah,
that was
yeah, I haven't read the new one yet, but even the last chapter of Dragon Ball Super just ended in let's instant teleportation chase each other, and you're like, what is happening now? Like, that's a weird cliffhanger to have for a chapter that comes out monthly. But for more about our Dragon Ball Super thoughts, check out our Dragon Ball Super conversation, which should be on the channel as well by the time you're seeing this. But yeah, at this point, I mean, Shigaraki is very beefed up. All for One is questionable on his strength, because I feel like if it's like the All Might thing, he should be getting weaker over time now that he has successfully transferred a bit of himself onto Shigaraki. So I'm not sure how his plot line's going to end up, really.
Well, it's difficult because that might be the case, but
yeah, maybe
because we have our weird Eggman lookalike doctor who was cloning quirks for him and stuff. There may be a cloned version, like backup, of All for One that he was part of how he passed it, so that he still kind of has as much power in his original body as he can.
Mm-hmm. I think it'd be interesting if we get like an even more hyper evolved Nomu. Because so far right now the Nomu just seem to be fodder for like, okay, we need the heroes to we need to show how powerful the heroes are, but we can't show them exploding a human body. So let's create these Nomu characters that can just explode, and people won't be traumatized by it. But I think it'd be really interesting if we saw like even a further like alpha version of a Nomu or something that they'd have to deal with. Because I've really enjoyed those parts of the stories where we get to see how those were progressing, and we're getting even sentient almost. So I don't know. I think we probably have enough on our plates plot wise. We probably don't need some hyper intelligent sentient Nomu being thrown into the mix at this point of the story.
Well, that's part of what ends up going on with Vigilantes to some extent, because there's a lot of Nomu talk in that series, and there definitely is an implication that the earlier Nomu were much smarter, and that's how you end up with like Kurogiri versus these high-end Nomu. We've kind of deliberately dumbed them down because when they think for themselves, they get a little crazy sometimes.
Oh, interesting. I again need to the more I think about it and the more I hear about Vigilantes, the more I need to check it out. I'm surprised they haven't done an anime for that yet.
I really hope that they do, at least when this is over, and they're going to be like, well, we don't want this to go away. It's still so popular. There's so much money to be made. Let's adapt Vigilantes. Awesome. Please do that.
I absolutely see that happening.
And I could especially see it happening because like they're making original movies for like the content, right? They're which are like, the fact that they're doing that makes it seem like they're making these, to make money in themselves and not necessarily as just an advertisement for the manga. So even after the series is over, I could see them potentially dipping into more My Hero properties.
There was an interview a week or two ago where Horikoshi said that he could see as many as 10 movies coming
Oh,
out
wow.
after the series ends.
Man.
Just
What is
it
this,
could be a
Dragon Ball
Dragon Ball
Z?
type thing. Yeah.
No, that would be awesome.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like we end and then we could get a whole nother sequel series, or they could do a movie sort of like they did with Naruto, where it was like, okay, a couple years later, we're gonna see where all the heroes are a couple years after they've grown up and neatly tie everything together. Yeah, I'd be all there for it, but I absolutely see vigilantes getting made after this, instead of them being like, hey, let's do a Boruto and have another series of Ochaku and Deku's kid, or Toga and Deku's kid. Whoa. That'd be kind of compelling, but
Well, the nice thing is, if we don't get an official story about Toga and Deku's kid, there's definitely going to be fan fiction that you
yeah,
can
I'm
look
sure
up
it's
about
already
it.
there. Let me
Yeah, it's
Google
probably
it.
there
Oh
somewhere.
my.
Again, we've got DNA and we've got weird cloning. Anything is possible.
Yeah. Which is actually one plot thread that I'm thanks for bringing that up, even as a joke. If Toga absorbed Deku's blood and was able to use his powers, I almost don't think she'd be able to handle it, and she would just explode, or her.
This might not be a bad ending for her, honestly.
Yeah, right. Because I don't know, she wouldn't necessarily explode, but like what Deku did was she wouldn't know how to properly use the power and would end up hurting herself or something. But I could see that being a great way to wrap up her thing. But she's got a fresh thing of Ochaku's blood, so we're going to be seeing Froppy and Ochaku versus a version of Toga where we don't know what other versions of blood she has.
We know she got twice.
Yes, twice.
Yeah.
That's what I'm actually really psyched out about, because I mean, she'll probably be able to use, I mean, have they said that she can use his quirk? Because I mean, she obviously cares enough about him that if that happens, like, could you imagine, like, she'd probably use it in a way so she can confront twice again, and might have this like intense moment where like just like she would go through all this like trauma by reliving what happened in the Paranormal Liberation War. That would be epic, just because Twice's character, everyone, like, I mean, I was devastated when he died. So I mean, bringing him back and having Toga confront him would be intense.
Well, that's the thing, is I think even when she used Ochaku's blood in the Liberation War arc, it wasn't necessarily like their personality didn't seem to be tied in with that at all. It just, she was able to take on their appearance and use their quirk. I almost see, I mean, that would be really compelling if he was almost resurrected in a way and we were able to see that sort of confrontation. But I think that she'll end up probably using Twice's quirk, probably for like a fake out sort of shadow clone kind of tactic, where they're like, okay, we captured the Toga, and then it'll disappear and be like, oh no, that was actually just a clone.
Like, what I'm thinking, like, because I know like in regular quirks, there's always the echo of the person's consciousness inside of it. Could somehow Toga's taking of the quirks create that echo? I mean, that's what.
Yeah,
that would be really cool if that
especially
happened.
combined with like Twice's quirk, where like Twice's quirk, like Twice himself had like fractured his personality so much with that quirk that it's kind of like tied inherently into the quirk, in the way I read it, at least. So like I could definitely see her using that quirk and then it manifesting another like Twice clone instead of just a Toga clone. Which
I totally forgot about that. Like, I knew that we had it with All for One and One for All with vestiges and stuff like that. But I totally forgot that people's like consciousnesses are somewhat tied to their quirks and stuff. So yeah, that's exciting. I absolutely didn't even think about that. So yeah, getting a Twice thing about it. And who knows, maybe if Toga like tries the new Ochaku blood, Ochaku's will have something to do with this fight. It might help her realize that she's being cray cray. I'm not sure how that's all going to wind up, but I hope she uses twice as blood first before Ochako's.
Or she does them all at the same time.
Oh man! Oh boy, that
we get another sort of like chimera sort of esque thing. We've got Shigaraki sprouting all the arms. We've got Toga sprouting all the.
Oh boy,
everybody's
he could
going
draw
full
it.
Akira.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's going full Akira, and he could absolutely draw that, and it would look amazing.
With fingers.
So many fingers. The crazy fans will be like, "Oh, there's twice his fingers, and there's Ochaku's fingers, and they'll know the identity of every finger." But yeah, I'm a lot more excited about this Toga thing now, which is sad because we'll probably be taking I don't know if they're going to show the resolution of that fight or if we're going to jump right into the Dabi Shoto stuff. Really depends how much they're going to be jumping around in this arc. Because I've read my share of war arcs in mangas, and some of them are a lot better at pacing than others when it comes to jumping around and stuff. But with the last big battle we had in the city and stuff, when Shigaraki was awakened and stuff like that, very excited to watch that animated. I thought we did an excellent job of jumping around to like what they're doing fighting Giga Machina and what was going on in the city. And I thought everything tied together really well. But right now we have so many other plot threads going. So we'll see how well of a balancing act he's able to do. Because I mean, we're still so early into this battle. That we'll see if it's a jumping around mess or if it's going to be a well-construed, delicate meal of a manga. But did you guys have any other thoughts on the last couple chapters you wanted to bring up?
Just I want more Todoroki and I want more Himiko.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think that'll probably about do it for this conversation for My Hero Academia 347 and 348. Again, I am Jason Hahn, and I would do a little bit of a plug. Check out Screen Rant articles. We've got all kinds of movie news, video game news, and comic news. These guys write some great stories about a lot of fan speculation theories and news to keep up on. I also do a YouTube series called Honzy and Friends. We like to do some Let's Plays with comedic people and have a good time. But yeah, Ben, did you have anything you wanted to plug?
Nothing I want to plug. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
I wanna hear about Carlyle's your graphic novel you're working on.
Yeah, he's got a visual novel. It's awesome.
Yeah, working on this visual novel, Elven Revenue Service. We're getting the Kickstarter set up. It will launch next month sometime, and I'm excited for that. And we're starting to get some YouTubers that have been playing through the demo and posting their reactions and stuff. That's been exciting too. So you can always check out at Elven Revenue Service on Twitter, or is it at Elven Revenue, I think.
Check out these links. They're awesome. And yeah, I hope you'll check out our other videos. If you're into other series, we're going to be talking about quite a few because we had a whole bunch of new chapters come out early. But feel free to like and subscribe and comment on all the parts that you thought we were really stupid about and how we're wrong about manga opinions. I'm sure there's none. I'm sure we nailed everything and you all agree with everything. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.